Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the pod.
Happy to be here.
Hope you are doing well. It feels like spring in Edmonton for the next couple days, but then it's going to get cold again. So we love that.
Temporary spring.
Yeah,
It'll be warm eventually.
it has to.
Right.
Do you have a win for your week?
Do I
What's
have a
been
win?
going on over there?
Do I have a win? I don't have any losses this week.
Fair. That's a win in itself, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to seem like a win to a ton of people, but I went to physio this morning, which sounds like a loss, right? But I'm actually just like kind of like I know what's going on. I just needed like a set of eyes and like some needles.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's exactly what I needed. Just a little bit of like, I don't know. I just needed a tune-up and some confidence that I'm like doing the right things and then I'm not just like out here, swatting at flies or something, whatever the saying is. So although my hip feels like it is going to explode from the soreness from the needles, we're okay.
Good. I'm glad you got what you needed from physio.
Yeah.
Got the support. What is my win? Oh, a little bit of like a business back end win.
Oh my God, I totally have a business win. I'll do better. You go, and then I'm gonna go again.
I've been shifting some of my content. If you follow me, if you don't, rude. You might have noticed that we're just like doing more content in general and a little bit different, more catered towards like coaching, because my manager has said very much that he's like, I love your content, but like you don't tell people that you do this for a job. Your social media, like especially my TikTok, sometimes just looks like a for fun type of page. So we've been shifting more towards like, hey, this is how I help as a coach. So that's been cool. But then we also came up with like a new like lead management strategy, kind of getting out of emails a little bit because I feel like nobody ever replies to emails. So I'm excited to have some new ways to like get in contact with people and new ways to like follow up with people that do fill out a coaching application. So it just feels nice to have a little bit of a game plan around like, hey, if they don't reply to an email, what's next?
Oh my God, back end stuff is like, wow, it's so much. I know we had a coaching episode, but like there's no way you guys could possibly understand. There's so much that happens behind the actual coaching part that you see, or the social media that you see, which is how we spend most of our days, truly. But I had like a much better win. I just created a new program. And it's going to be great. I already have so many people interested. It's basically like it was supposed to be for like older adults because like my mom needed something to do that wasn't my 28 days of strength thing. And my aunt was looking for something and I was like, I'll just make it. That's fine. And then I was like, I don't want to limit it to older adults. So it's going to be like, it's called Strong Span, as in strong over your lifespan.
Okay.
It's really for those people who are like, I am happy to stay. Either you're kind of like me, where you're like in a period of maintenance and you're happy to be there, or you're like just looking to like purely lift just for health. You're not really interested in progressing to like PRs. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you're just supporting other activities. That's who it's for. And yeah, and I'm like going to be running, like I'm doing it officially. Like I'm running a beta test and then I'm not going to actually launch it till September. I spent so much time getting like, the payment stuff set up, the emails set up for the people who sign up, the, just, yeah. like you're talking about back end stuff, man, sometimes. And then if you ever decide to change anything, like let's say you change the name of a program halfway through creating it,
Yeah, annoying, but that is
website
exciting.
design. Yeah. Anyways, that's a much better win than going to physio and getting needles in my leg.
You're like, wait, I can do better than this. And kind of goes into what we're talking about on the pod today. We wanted to talk to you guys about realistic timelines when it comes to things like strength gains. Like, when are you actually going to notice an increase in strength? Body changes. So more specifically, like what's realistic for fat loss, postpartum recovery, things like that. Because I feel like thanks to the internet, we all have a very skewed idea of how long things actually take to accomplish. And that's why we ultimately never end up accomplishing it, because we give up, because in our brains, it should have happened by now.
Yeah, and I feel like in today's world, there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to this stuff. And, we've talked about this before, like it's hard to know what's true and what's not. But you guys know we're going to tell it to you straight. We're going to give you science-based information. And yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. We always think things should happen faster than they do. And usually my response when people are like, well, this hasn't happened yet, I'm like, yeah.
It also never will if you stop working towards it. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of that like double-edged sword where you're like frustrated because it hasn't happened yet, but then you're going to be extra frustrated when in 6 months you're working towards the same goal again, when we could have just kept working towards it in the first place. But we live in a world of like instant gratification. Like, if I'm going to do it, I better instantly see results, or else it was a waste of my time. And unfortunately, changing your body and changing your physique in any way is going to be one of the hardest things you ever do. And it's going to take way longer than you want it to. But that's such as life. You're going to be fine.
And also, I think it's important to know that the changes that tend to last the longest or forever are the ones that took the longest to achieve. So
let's start with your specialty, talking about postpartum. What is realistic? Because we know that social media is full of like the 6-week bounce back or whatever bug they choose to promote postpartum. What's actually realistic to be back in the gym, to be seeing progress, whatever it may be?
So I hate to start with it depends. However, everybody is going to be different. It's also going to be dependent on the type of birth that you had. So, for example, if you had a relatively uncomplicated vaginal delivery and with zero or minimal tearing, you're going to be probably ready to move in different ways sooner than someone who was trying for a vaginal delivery, ended up getting to 10 centimeters dilated, did some pushing, and then had an emergency C-section, because now you have 2 births to recover from. Mm-hmm. And then a C-section straight up would be somewhere in between, right? There's always going to be a difference depending on exactly what went down. So that said, your 6 weeks initial, which is what everybody knows, you're going to go back to your OB, you're going to be discharged from your midwife, whatever it is, that is just for tissue healing and infection control, right? That's what they're checking for. They're checking for red flags. They're checking they probably will do a mental health screen, sometimes not. That's what they're looking for, is they're looking for that initial physical repair and no sign of infection. Okay. They want to see that your scar is healing. They want to make sure that you don't have any stitches hanging around. Anything like that is going to be the initial 6 weeks. Now, a lot of people feel pretty good a couple weeks after. They can start doing some easy movement at home, right? You can do some core engagement stuff. You can start doing a few maybe body weight squats. The other thing it's going to depend on is the temperament of your baby. you have a very demanding tiny human, you may not be getting sleep. You may have a hard time feeding. If everything is well established and you're feeling good, move. But we also need to be aware of if we do some movement and your postpartum bleeding picks up, or you're getting some symptoms of prolapse, or you're getting some leaking, those are all warning signs that you did too much. So all that said, by 6 weeks, you could return to a relatively okay rebuilding strength training routine. Hopefully, you're going to see a pelvic floor physio no matter what, just to get a baseline of what's going on down there. Hopefully, you're going to maybe talk to, I don't know, a postpartum fitness specialist, somebody like that, and get a good base going. As far as impact goes, somewhere between 10 and 16 weeks, probably. Impact being like running, jumping, things like that. Maybe if you're a professional athlete, which is what we're seeing with like Tia Claire Toomey, Annie Thorisdottir, might be earlier. Probably not for us normal people.
So
you
you're
might be a
saying
little bit later.
6 weeks is like you're probably ready to get back to something, whatever that level looks like for you.
Probably, unless your body is just real slow at healing. And maybe I don't know, if you were like on bed rest for a lot of your pregnancy or had a really terrible time, pregnancy and birth, maybe 6 weeks is like, man, I'm just walking up and down my stairs once a day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's enough, right? I hate the term listen to your body because half the time we're not really sure what we're supposed to be listening for. But at the same time, I think deep down, if it's too much, right? If you're standing at your sink and your glutes are clenched because you're so stressed out about this new baby who's screaming while you're trying to get stuff done, or you're stressed about their sleep and your sleep and feeding and whatever, probably not the time to add in another stressor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage you to have a fitness professional, a physical therapist on your side who can look at your life objectively and guide you, because you're not in a great headspace to be making these kinds of decisions about exercise. Even, and I will say, me as a postpartum fitness expert, I was like, why am I having this heaviness in my vagina? And my PT was like, well, what are you doing all day long? Are you, are you clenching your glutes at the sink? And I was like, probably. And she's like, well, and I was like, oh yeah. Right. So it's hard to look at your own life objectively. And I think that sometimes you need somebody to ask the hard questions and you'd be like, yeah, you know what? You're right.
Well, also like postpartum, you got a lot going on. If you can offload a couple of those things, it's probably for the best.
Totally.
Just so you're not piling on like, oh, and now here's all the other things I also have to pay attention to. If you can have someone else to guide you through that, that's going to be helpful. But I know a lot of women get really antsy postpartum, especially if you were training at like a consistent level pre-birth. You're probably antsy to get moving and grooving, but like don't do too much too soon. But like 6 weeks is realistic of like talk to your people, get your team of like whatever
make a
you
plan.
need, make a plan, go.
And I would even say that like, there is no timeline truly, right? We will give ourselves a timeline in our head of what we think we should be doing because we're women and that's just how most of our brains work. But the slower you return and the more strategic you are, the better off you're going to be in the long term. So I think this is probably going to be a overarching theme of this episode, is that slower is better. There have been professional athletes who have said that they wish they had come back slower during their postpartum period, and they're professional athletes. That's their job, right? So slower is always going to be better. Err on the side of caution try to tune into what your body's telling you. Prioritize rest, prioritize nutrition, prioritize sleep, even though those things, you're trying to prioritize those for you and another human who you don't really know.
But I also think in general, like giving yourself a bigger timeline is going to be always more helpful, even from a stress level wise. Like, why are we shortening off that timeline and stressing ourselves out when we don't meet it, when we could just have a bigger timeline?
And I realize that there are a lot of places where they don't have paid maternity leave or things like that. And you feel the pressure to get back to your normal life, whatever that is, whether it's a PT test for work or something like that. And there might not be a way around it right now, but that shit ain't right. Postpartum is the most wild time of your entire life. And if you can prioritize sleep, nutrition, and rest, then you're going to be okay. It'll come back, right? It really, truly will. And it'll be different birth to birth, whether you're like, oh, I was back running at 8 weeks with my first, and now it's like, 20 weeks and I'm not with my second. You can't compare the two of them at all.
Yeah. Cool. So 6 weeks is your good, like, start making a plan point, but don't be surprised.
Yeah. And I would say you can even make a plan before that if you're feeling good, right? A lot of pelvic floor physios will see you at 4 weeks. If you're feeling great and you're okay with someone checking you out up there, do it. Make a plan with a professional that is certified to help you make a plan. Don't listen to these people on TikTok who are like, I ran the day after I gave birth. Don't listen to that lady, even though she's got like 4 kids. I can guarantee you that's not it. She's an exception. But also, you don't necessarily have to listen to the crazy chiropractor on TikTok who's saying that she wouldn't run a year postpartum after a C-section. There's an in-between.
Yeah, totally fair. Cool.
Let's go your direction now, and let's talk about fat loss, Jill, because that's what everybody's here for.
Everyone's going to come for my head because I'm about to ruin all of your expectations around fat loss, which is like, not to throw a pity party for myself, but the worst part of my job is having to be like, haha, that's not happening.
I am the bearer of bad news.
And I always ask in every consultation call, what timeline do you have in your head? Because I don't care if you come to me and say, it doesn't matter how long it takes. No, you're lying to me. You already have a timeline in your head that you've thought is realistic for the goals you have. Please tell me so that I can tell you whether you're going to be real disappointed or not. The only people, and I say this with love, I trust that say I don't have a timeline in mind are also the people that don't have a goal weight. If you come to me saying, I want to weigh X amount, I guarantee you have a timeline of when you think that should be achieved by. If you're just like, yeah, I want to gain muscle, I want to lose a little bit of fat, not really in a rush, I trust you far more than I want to lose 30 pounds, but like, it doesn't matter how long it takes me because I guarantee it will. And I'd rather know upfront than 3 weeks in being like, well, I thought this was going to happen by now. You're all going to hate us saying it depends, but fat loss really depends on how you're coming to me. Are you coming to me already eating 1,200 calories a day and working out 7 days a week? Because then like, I don't really have much wiggle room to help you. I'm going to tell you, you need to eat more and work out less. And that's going to feel like the opposite of what you need to do for fat loss. And your brain's probably not going to love it. But the thing with fat loss is we can only continue to make it happen if we have room to make it happen. So if you're already working out as much as you can and eating as little as possible, I can't up your movement or decrease your calories. So we got nowhere to go. So if you're already under eating, over exercising, you're looking at like 6 months before we even start fat loss. And that's simply because we need to get your body in a place where it actually can lose fat. It's not in starvation mode. You haven't killed your metabolism. That's not what's happening. It's just like your body has learned how to function off of that little of food So if I decrease your calories, you're coming to me eating 1,200 calories. What am I supposed to give you 1,000 a day? That's not enough for a human being.
I mean, some people would.
Yeah. But then we're going to run into the same problem in 4 months when you're not losing fat again. And I'm not making you eat 800 calories a day. So 6 months to slowly build up calories. It's not to panic. I don't need you eating 3,000 calories starting tomorrow, but like, can we increase protein? Can we increase veggies? Can we find more effective movement so we don't feel like we have to work out 7 days a week? Let's get your body to a point where it enjoys food, it's using food, you're not gaining weight from it, but we actually have enough food to function. And then we can look at a calorie deficit. If you're a little bit more of the unicorn that comes to me with high calories, far less often with females, but every once in a while I get someone eating between 2,000 and 3,000 calories a day, which 2,000 calories a day, even for like a full grown woman who's exercising, is still not that many calories, which is going to be shocking to anyone who's eating like 1,200 calories a day. But if you come to me eating like 3,000 calories a day, great, cool. We have plenty of room to decrease your calories because your body has already been given plenty of food for however many months. So if you're lucky enough or have put in the work already to increase your food, we can probably have fat loss happening in 4 to 6 weeks. But that's because your body is in a place to actually eat less and actually lose fat. If we don't have to do the bring food up thing first, we can create fat loss a lot faster. But a lot of women come to me being like, yeah, I want to lose 30 pounds in 3 months, but I'm eating 1,200 calories a day. And then I have to be the one to say, cool, we're going to spend the next 6 months not in a fat loss phase, increasing your food. And then you're going to shit your pants because your brain's like, I just came to Jill for fat loss and she's telling me to eat more and move less. And that feels backwards. So have you done the groundwork? 4 to 6 weeks. Are we doing the groundwork together? 6 months before we enter a fat loss phase. But I guarantee you, if you spend the time and put in the work, you don't have to be in a fat loss phase every year. You can just lose the fat, maintain it, move on with your life versus cycling through a calorie deficit every 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I like literally have nothing to add to that. I feel like part of which that I think that like we don't hear about is that you do need to be in that sort of maintenance phase for a period of time for your body to just like homeostasis, right?
Yes,
Like
your body needs to know, like, I have more than enough food to do what I need to do, because fat loss is a stress on your body no matter which way you swing it. And if you're already stressing your body out because you're not eating enough food, it's not going to want to lose fat. So if you want to put stress on your body, create fat loss, we need to make sure our body can handle that stress. And we also need to make sure we can continue to make it happen. If you're eating 3,000 calories a day, I can drop you to 2,500 and we're going to have fat loss happen. And then 22 and then 20 and then 2,000. And like, we have a ton of wiggle room to bring food down. We don't have that same wiggle room when you're only eating 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah. And also know that like none of those changes are overnight, right? So you can't just decide that on a Thursday you're going to eat 3,000 calories and then by Friday you're healed or you're ready. Your body, we've talked about this before, your body doesn't compartmentalize stress between good and bad. It just knows stress. Yeah. So if you keep adding the stress of taking food away and adding the stress of exercising, that's not helpful at all. Your body's just like stress, stress, stress. And when it's in fight or flight mode, there's nothing else that's happening.
Well, and when we're high stress in fight or flight, your body's only going to do what is needed to keep you alive. That's why constant stress does nobody any favors, but especially not with a fat loss phase, because having the ability to lose fat is a luxury. It is a nice to have function, not a need to have function. Yeah. Our bodies actually love to not lose fat, because it means we're healthy, we're
We
fed,
like
we
to
have
be
more.
hoarders.
Yeah, we have more than enough calories. We don't have to worry about when our next meal is coming. Like our bodies are just like, cool, love this. We have everything we need all of the time. So if you've already created a bunch of stress by under eating, your body is probably like, okay, make sure she stays alive. And that energy is going to go towards digesting the food you do eat, resting and recovering.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably not having great bowel movements. Your digestion probably sucks. You're probably not sleeping well. Not to blanket this, but like if having a baby is a thing, but you've been chronically under eating, your body's like, we're not in a place to have a baby. That's a very nice to have function. So if you want the nice to have perks, high stress or high sex drive, ability to lose fat, ability to reproduce, you need to make sure you're taking care of your calorie intake, so your body's actually willing to do all those things.
And just a quick little sidebar back to postpartum. If you are thinking about losing fat loss or losing weight and you're still breastfeeding, don't even. Because first of all, ethically, nobody should be touching that. But from the other side of it, people will say that like, oh, breastfeeding is going to burn the calories off. The fat just melted off me. That's not true. You do need extra calories to support breastfeeding, but if you are trying to lose weight while you're breastfeeding and you're going hard at the gym, you're breastfeeding, you're probably not eating enough to support both of those things. You know what's going to drop? Your milk supply.
Yeah.
And then you're going to feel like a bad mother, and nobody wants that. So just if you're listening to this and you're breastfeeding, if you're listening to this and breastfeeding right now, kudos for you. Don't start restricting your calories.
I had this conversation about someone who was gaining weight while breastfeeding. And like there's things we can do nutrition wise to like better support you, make some better nutrition choices, do the thing, but fat loss shouldn't be at the front of that. It should be like hey, I need support in figuring out what I need to be eating if I'm getting enough protein X, Y, and Z outside of fat loss.
And people will be like, oh, like your supply dropped. Oh, you need these special lactation cookies or whatever. How about
eat
just a really great balanced diet with lots of protein, lots of fats, some carbs, and some vegetables, because there's nothing special in those lactation cookies except calories.
No. Our favorite topic: what is realistic for gaining some strength and pushing weights in the gym?
Providing that you're eating enough to support your efforts. Sidebar, right? I would say you'll probably start to feel a little different, a little stronger, a little tighter, a little something, a little pep in your step, if you will. 6 to 8 weeks, 6 to 12 weeks with a really great progressive program, probably.
Yeah, I would say like you're gonna start to notice the benefits of strength training far sooner. More energy.
Oh, that's just
hunger.
Yeah, that's just like feeling different. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
you know, like noticing somebody else noticing. Maybe I don't know. 16 weeks, 12, 16 weeks.
I would say in the first like 4 to 8 weeks, you should be noticing more energy. Better sleep, for sure. More hunger, like that should be pretty quick. And then I would say after that like 2-month mark, you should start to be like, hey, is that a new muscle? Hey, does my shoulder look a little bit different? Hey,
is that my bicep?
Yeah, whatever. You should start to notice some new things.
Or even just like, hey, I picked up my kid and I didn't do the like, ugh, as I picked them up.
Yeah. And I think there's little things like that you'll notice. Like I've been working on handstands, and I would say every 2 weeks, I have a moment of like, hold on, that got a little bit easier. But you have to be paying attention to those things.
And you have to be consistent.
Yeah, like I work on handstands every time I'm in the gym.
Which is how many times a week?
Like 4.
Okay. Okay, but so like more days working on them than not.
Yeah, like anytime I'm in the gym, I throw myself upside down a few times before I leave. Because especially little things like that, like you can do frequently. Like it's not like I'm
Mhm.
maxing out my squat, so I need to recover. Like I'm tossing myself upside
Yeah.
down a few times. I'm holding up my own body weight. But every couple weeks, I'm like, hey, hold on. And I tell that to clients too. Like every couple weeks in the gym, you should be checking in. Like, is this weight still heavy enough for me?
Yeah.
You should be able to put weight on to your movements every 2 to 3 weeks, even if it's 2.5 pounds here, 5 pounds there.
Yeah.
If you're not trying to increase your weight in the gym every couple weeks, you're not going to gain strength. We need to be like, our muscles adapt fast, we recover fast, especially if nutrition and rest is where we need it to be. So like put the extra weight on every couple weeks, and if it's too heavy, you can take it off.
Yeah. Yeah. I literally just had a conversation with a client about that today. She's like, I'm a little nervous about the heavier weights. And I was like, remember, you can put it down.
Yeah, you can
Um,
literally switch out your dumbbells.
and I would say like, you know, I think a lot of people be like, well, I'm not working on handstands, so like that doesn't apply to me. This is for all you people that are like, I want to get my first pull up. Every time you're at the gym, every time you see a chin-up bar, go and do one.
Touch
Or
it.
try one,
Yeah.
or hang from it, or do a negative, like jump up and lower yourself down. Like frequency is key to those muscle memory things.
You want
Like
to work on push-ups? Do push-ups.
you're gonna have to do it more than once a week.
Yeah,
That they
you
come
want to
up in your program.
increase the weight in your squat, you need to add weight to your bar. If you've been squatting a 25 on each side for your whole life, you're stronger than that. You just haven't actually tested the theory.
Yeah. And also know that like there is a bit of discomfort that's going to come along with adding the weights, especially if you've been kind of stagnant for a while. Yeah, you're going to be more sore. You're going to have to probably eat a little bit more to support your new goals or gains or whatever we're going to call it. But patience can also be a key too. Like a lot of times, if maybe you're like, I want to get my first pull up after having a baby, like there's a rehab process that happens, whether it's an injury, and I would consider having a baby to fall into a rehab category. It's not an injury as such, but I mean, you might have had one.
Yeah.
But there is progression that has to happen, right? And if you're not getting a program that's going to give you progressions to get you to that goal, like Jill didn't just decide she was going to stand on her hands one day and go for it. There's progressions that happen, like pressing overhead and, you know, wall walks or off
The
the
wall was my
blocks.
best friend for a quick minute. And
Like,
even like if you see me on Instagram working on it, like I get people to help me hold a PVC pipe, whatever. You guys don't see the amount of times I eat shit flipping myself upside down. Like a
can you
lot
do a
of my
blooper reel for us?
yeah, like a lot of my handstand work is, oh, I kicked too hard. Oh, I didn't kick hard enough. I accidentally did a cartwheel. Like you just have to keep trying, and you have to get comfortable with the movement to see progress in it. Anything new is going to be uncomfy, and your body's going to be like, don't do that. But you just have to be like, look, we're going to do it, not die. And then we're going to get better at it. And then you just keep going.
And there are smart ways to progress, right? So if we're thinking about you want to maybe lift heavier for squatting and you're only doing goblet squats right now at like 25 pounds, we have some work to do before we put a barbell on your back.
Yeah. And like bring that into perspective. Like a lot of women are scared to bench press. Okay. If you can dumbbell bench press 225, like a 25-pound dumbbell in each side, guess what? That's heavier than the bar.
It's actually probably easier to do the bar because you have both sides to help you and not like it.
If you need to build confidence that way, work up to like, okay, once I can squat 45 pounds with the free weight, I can move to the barbell because that's how much it weighs. Once I can,
and you can go before that too.
Yeah, but like if that is like you need to do the math of like, oh look, I can dumbbell press 225s, which is heavier than the bar. You can now go use the bar. So work on things like that, but you should be able to push weights, add weight, challenge yourself in the gym every couple weeks. If you're not, then that's the reason you're not seeing the progress you want. Because you have gained strength since you last did that movement, you just need to remind yourself of that.
And I will say there's ways to do it at home if you don't have the wide variety of weights that the gym has. There's tempo work, there's pause work, there's different positions, different elements that we can add or take away to gain some strength. Yes, you're going to top out at some point. However, it's not just about adding more sets or adding more reps. There's things we can do within the rep that can make a 25-pound dumbbell feel like 35 or 40. So again, working with someone who actually knows what they're doing and knows how to progress you using what you have can be really beneficial if you want to gain some strength without having a room full of dumbbells in your basement.
Yeah. And I will also say as the last thing, and probably a good place to wrap it up, is if you've been doing the same workouts since your first day in the gym, it's also why you're not seeing progress, because a lack of variety will mean you're only strong with those 10 movements that you've been doing for 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You should be changing either the tempo or the weights or the movements. I change my client stuff every 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That gives you enough time to let those adaptations and those strength gains happen. But also we keep things fresh by changing them up, making them harder, picking a different variation, letting you go up in weight, different rep ranges. And you also won't get too terribly bored. It is going to be a little bit boring. I'm not going to lie to you and be like, I can give you a new flashy workout every single day. That would also be a lie. Because we don't, our muscles don't need to be confused. They don't do that. They only flex and extend.
And yeah, if you're wanting to build strength
or contract and relax, sorry.
Yeah, if you're wanting to build strength and gain confidence, you need to touch a movement more than once every 3 months. But if you need support, like I hope this put into perspective, whatever you're seeing on the internet is probably a lie, and gave you some like tangible things to be like, okay, if I'm going to start this goal, this is a timeline I need to set for myself. And if you need support working towards that goal and you need help with like making sure you see the progress you want, you know where to find us. We would both, I mean, if you're postpartum, probably hang out with Jess, just because that is her thing. And if you are looking for fat loss, I got you. So message one of us and we'll point you in the right direction either way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to just try to be as realistic as possible with your expectations and with your goals. And if you feel like you're totally out to lunch, you probably are.
Yeah.
And we're happy to give it to you straight.
Yeah, I talk about this all the time. Give yourself more time and then be pumped when you get to your goal sooner, rather than trying to rush it and then being disappointed and sad and defeated and quitting because you didn't get to where you wanted to in the time you thought you would do it.
Yeah, don't be, I've seen this twice. Don't be the person who buys a dress in a smaller size and makes TikToks about it for the next 90 days, trying to fit in to the dress.
Buy the one that fits.
I think that's, if it works, that's just dumb luck. Yeah. Because there's just no, you can't lose from your rib cage. Okay. Like you can't change your structure.
I had this conversation with a friend and she listens to the pod because I have a little waist and that's not an ego thing. It's just an anatomy thing. I have a small waist. I always have. And she was like,
it's called genetics.
Yeah. She was like, how do I make my waist smaller? And I said, well, you can lose some fat. And I said this only because she asked. I wouldn't just walk up to someone and be like, you should lose some fat. But I was like, you can lose some fat. It'll make your waist look leaner. But at the same time, tough shit. You're not built the same as me. And even if you lose fat, you're not going to have as small of waist. And
yeah,
sometimes having that reminder of like, you can do the thing and gain confidence in your body. It's still not going to look the same as someone else because you're not built the same as someone else. And that's okay.
Yeah, totally. We really do forget about genetics a lot of times, which that's that'd be science.
Yeah, like I'm not a small human. Like I've only been weighing myself again just to like track it, but I sit between like 175 and 180 pounds. I'm only 5'4", in case anyone has forgotten that. I've always been a dense little human, but I also have like a 27-inch waist. Like that's like, I don't think normal, but like such is life. Some people have bigger legs,
A
whatever.
27-inch waist is normal for lots of people.
Yeah.
Mine's like somewhere close to that, a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger, but I'm also not shaped like you at all.
Yeah. And that's like you and I could have the same waist size and it still wouldn't work. It's why sharing jeans between
But
girls doesn't work, because
your pants wouldn't fit me because they would be shorts.
They would be shorts. See, I have like stubby, thick legs, and that's annoying to buy jeans. But
I
such is
have the
life.
legs of a
Fine.
6-footer.
Yeah. So yeah,
And the
don't worry about
torso
it.
of a midget.
Yeah.
Dwarf.
Stop comparing yourself in any ways of timelines of people getting things done, body shape, whatever it may be. Figure out what's going to work best for you. If you need support while you do that. If you just want a neutral place to send a message, you can find the podcast at Lattes and Lifting Podcast on Instagram. You can shoot us a DM there. I will point you in whoever's direction, or you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at coachjill.april.
Yeah, we would love a question from you guys for our next recording. That'd be great. And you can find me at JLock Fitness on all the socials.
And Jess will put up a question box before we podcast next week, so you can
I
slide
will
it in
put a note in my phone right now.
Beautiful. And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye. Shit.